I'll
now. So I'm
summarize
saying,
it. He said you need Jesus. That's what he just said. That's what he just
I,
said.
I would say Jesus is on my side. He disagrees with me. Get out of here.
As soon as the progressive says Jesus is my homie, we're halfway winning, right? We're halfway there, right? It's just like one more push, right?
I believe morals are real in the same way that math is real, right? In the same way that 2 + 2 = 4 is real, right? You can't pick up a 2 or pick up a 4, right? But you can see the attributes of 2ness and 4ness on things, right? You can have 2 of a thing and 2 of a thing, and together you have 4 of a thing, and this is real. It's in the same way morals are real. It's a deduction from axioms, which are undeniably true.
Okay, so I was trying to work out what you meant, because I do apologize, because I know that I've listened a bit to Tom Jump, and he actually believes it's a physical, universal law of nature. So I was just checking if you're one of those. And I'm like, okay, phew, he's not one of those. Okay, so you believe it's equal in, for example, if I look at Popper's 3-world model, which is what I would map in computer science. I got this physical world, there's an abstract world, and there's a conscious world. You're saying moral truths are equivalent to Platonic truths or abstract truths. They exist like the laws of arithmetic or the laws of induction, and therefore in the physical world, we are appealing to an idealism that is in the abstract world, therefore it's real. I consider the abstract world real, right, to use that word. I consider the area of a circle is pi r squared is a real thing. Therefore, are you saying morals exist in a perfect form in that real world, which we should adhere to, and therefore moral utilitarianism is a way to instantiate these principles we have that are actually objective. I'm going to use that word with a small o, as opposed to they don't necessarily exist in the presence of our minds, and therefore they're small o objective, and therefore I could, in some sense, codify for them, and therefore it's not really left to right, is it? It should really be universal, would you agree? It should apply to the current left-right divide, right? It should apply to center politics, left politics, and right politics. Otherwise, it's not a universal, right? I can't have geometry that doesn't apply to sphere. Okay, cool. So, and you're saying, are you making the further claim, therefore, that those principles are maximized minimization of preferences and possible maximization of scope?
No, for me specifically, I advocate for the maximization of truth. I think this is the one with the strongest arguments behind it. I think that if you take a look at preferences, I think this comes down to there's like arbitrarity there, right? I think in the case of maximizing truth, and what I mean by that is maximizing the degree to which your brain models reality. I think that's what morality tends towards.
Okay, so in that case, that's brilliant. Okay, so much more into my sort of subject areas, I guess, normally, which is, as you can imagine, I'm a computer scientist, and that's our job, is to actually codify all three things together. So therefore, you're making the claim that there are systems of truths or propositional claims that could be dynamic. They could evolve over time. I could update them. You gave a good example as veganism. I could have been a carnivore for centuries, but now I look at factory farming and go, that's just horrid, right? For conservative, that would trigger our purity dimension. Therefore, conservatives say, oh, that's bad, right? For a different reason than you. Progressives were like, hey, don't hurt the animals. And liberals would come up with a different reason, right? I mean, hey, it's okay, just being silly. So I mean, look at that, and you say, therefore, I could codify this vegan set of propositional claims in my abstract world. Suddenly, prior to this set of propositional claims, they didn't exist. Now they do exist, and your higher order claim is moral universalism is really the derived form of the maximization of which truth-claiming or truth-holding propositions on how we behave are going to be the only ones. Therefore, would you admit that your moral system would be continuously evolving, or at least adapting? Would it not be constant?
No, I think that the reality of morals is true eternally. I think it exists from the beginning of time. The claims we make about morals would be either true or false, independent of any human mind, right? So I would disagree that it is something that evolves and changes over time. I don't think morals do that. I think that our perception of morals do, right? Our knowing of the true morals do. But it's the same way that like there was a period in time in which we had not figured out certain mathematical proofs, and now we have figured out those mathematical proofs, right? But those mathematical proofs were always true throughout all of time, right? Before humans even existed, those mathematical proofs were true. I want to say
amen to that. I want to say amen to that and introduce you to John 8:32, but I'm not going to do that, right? You should know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But I love that principle. So you're saying there's a universal truth.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Could you say that again?
Not a problem. Hey, just tell me to reset it every time I robot out, right? Maybe I'll slow down that.
I'll summarize it. He said you need Jesus. That's what he just said. That's what he just said.
I would say Jesus is on my
God
side.
bless you,
Jesus agrees with
Mark.
me. Get out of here.
As soon as the progressive says Jesus is my homie, we're halfway winning, right? We're halfway there, right? It's just like one more push, right? No, but this is really fascinating stuff. So, okay, so you're saying not only the universalist truths, but the universalist truths are absolutist truths, right? Just like the area of a circle has always been pi r squared. It's never been different in a different space-time continuum, right? Okay, cool. So therefore, if you say these things are absolute, you're saying the human moral condition has been a search for truth, and therefore, as we evolve as humanity, we should be getting closer to these truths, right? I mean, hopefully, we should be progressing towards these truths. We may go through cyclical periods where we become bad, or society's been stress tested to hold its truths. Think of a genocide, think of the Shoah, the Holocaust, etc., etc. And okay, cool. And are you saying, therefore, the principles within that ontology are moral utilitarianism, just to maximize it? When you say truth, do you actually mean the maximization of the ability of a human to be close to these unstated principles, or are you also stating the principles as min-max function of preferences, I believe, right?
No, not preferences. Once again, it's truth.
Just truth. Okay.
So the degree to which...
Go on, sorry, go on.
So it would be the degree to which minds model reality, right? So this could exist in the term of human minds or in the term of any kind of mind. So long as a mind is modeling reality as accurately as possible, it would be the case that has a lot of utility. If there are many minds modeling reality as accurately as possible, that would have even more utility.
So utility, okay. So you're saying, okay, I got you. So I'm just trying to lock on, man. It takes a little while. It's late here. Okay, I got you. So you're saying the absolute truth is fixed and frozen, and the more minds that subjectively can minimize their difference of their understanding of truth, the better it is, for lack of a word, the better it is for humanity, because the more truthful we are and the more we know these things, the better we will be as a consequence.
Oh, I'm not... I think you're viewing it in almost like reverse order. What I'm saying is not that we can be more moral by knowing truth, but knowing truth is what is moral in and of itself. To have access to truth is morality. So, say for example that we had in a vacuum two worlds. There's a world one in which nobody knows how like particle physics works, right, or something like this. And in world two, everyone knows how particle physics works. There's no difference in the quality of life in these two worlds or something. We just have these two worlds as the options that we can go down, right? One in which people know more about the universe and one in which they know less. The one in which they know more is just by virtue of them knowing more about the universe, good in and of itself. It is better in and of that fact.
Okay, so your goodness is really a maximization of knowledge, strictly speaking, not truths. Right, so if human being is
knowledge in a colloquial sense,
Yeah, colloquial sense, in an informal sense. If knowing is the ability of a human to carry, to be the truth bearer, or the carrier, or the holder of a truth bearer, then knowledge to know is just maximization of how many people know the truth. So that's really a different definition of goodness, isn't it? Or at least implied within it. It's got a presupposition that goodness is knowing, right? Is that?
I feel like I missed the word there.
Okay, so isn't implicit in those claims that to be good is to know?
To be good is to know. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. To be good is to do the actions which bring about the most knowledge.
Right. So goodness is the same as knowing, right? In your world.
No, goodness is to bring about more knowledge. So even if you were to know less, if you could make sure that other people knew much more, that would be a good action still. So for example, an example I'll give you. Oh, so an example I'd give you. Okay. The quick example I'd give you would be in the case where you're dead, right? It would be impossible for you to know anything, right? But if you were to sacrifice your life for the sake of more people's lives, that would be a morally good action to do. Like a heroic soldier going into battle to win some fight that saves people that saves people back home.
So let's take it to a couple of examples then. So I'll take two obvious examples from conservative principles. Let's take the example we already used. I don't want my prepubescent daughter to have any sexual partners once she's pubescent. I mean, even that prepubescent is scary. How is that mapped to knowledge in your system? I've mapped to the conservative dimension of authority plus purity, right?
Yeah. So the way I'd map it back to knowledge in the case of this specific example, right, which I would say, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be you probably shouldn't go out and be depraved. The reasons you shouldn't be depraved is it could be unhealthy for you. It could be the case that this depravity makes you less empathetic towards other people because of the fact that you've gone out and I'm guessing an example would be like you've gone out and you've put other people at risk of disease, right? That would perpetuate those bad values, which would make you less likely to preserve people's lives. And obviously, this is important for them understanding the truth. That could be one way in which it bakes back. Another way could be that depravity could make it the case that instead of pursuing knowledge, you more tend towards pursuing like primal pleasures, like these very simple desires like sex instead. These are ways in which that can bake back.
So maybe that's a different example. Let me just tighten the example a bit. So let's say, for example, on the same principles of all three, I would reject the following scenario. Can you justify by using either progressive principles or your principles? What's wrong with two consenting gay brothers having sex?
Well, the thing that would be wrong with it in the case of the social standard of incest, even if you in that moment, even if you can't reproduce, it could still be the case that social standard of allowing incest could make it so that other people who are incestuous are more likely to do incestuous acts that end up producing these sort of like. Say again?
Suppose I add another adjective, a private, secret, consensual,
private, secret gay incest. I would say it would break down a sort of family norm. I think that is an important precedent to set for society.
But if it was secret,
even if it was secret, it would break down the norm within their own minds.
So you're saying that the norm in there, but where did that norm come from? So if no one knows about it, they hid it from the rest of their family, and they were just incestuous. They would know about it. So you're saying just because they know about it, that's the only reason it's wrong.
I could not imagine you doing incest while not knowing you're doing it. I think it's part of the definition of incest.
Oh, but hang on, isn't that just like I don't want to be rude here. So isn't that kind of like a get out of jail card? Because you can say everything is about knowing, and therefore I'm just racing forward to say any propositional claim I give you, you're going to just map that back to say, but if I just knew about it and I had an explanatory power from the knowledge of any particular scenario, you're going to describe the explication of that scenario, and then you're going to claim knowing the explication equals good. Is that the pattern that you're going to?
Oh no, sorry. I think you're misunderstanding. They will be affected by the action in terms of the ways that their minds works, right? So it's not a matter of like they know more or know less or something. That's not the point I'm making here. The case is their minds are affected by this action. So even if only those two people know about it, even if only they do, the effects of those actions in terms of setting a social standard could still be something that echoes outward, right? It could still be something that even just echoes it towards themselves, even. And it could be the case that they sort of
saying because erode these norms. I hear you. Because you're saying because they know it is a taboo, therefore just the knowledge of the taboo itself would be transformative in a negative sense.
Even if it wasn't a taboo, it could still be the case, right? If it wasn't a taboo, the fact that we have this as a social standard is because as a social standard, as a precedent across the entirety of society, it ends up producing good results.
So if I took any example,
specific case, even though it does, go ahead.
No, I'm trying to understand because I'm trying my hard to work with you and trying to see if I can map myself into your model, so to speak. So therefore, even if I drop that to a one-person scenario, you're saying just the act of self-knowledge, the knowledge of who you are, and therefore the knowledge of who you are having some implicit idea of good or bad. So let me give you another example. In the classic, these are a little more risque than Bantham's trolley experiments. But the idea that let's say a man was to masturbate to the drawing of a child that doesn't exist. So there's no child, it's never harmed. The child doesn't exist. It's just a pencil drawing. He does it in secret. No one knows about it. Is it good or bad? Are you going to say, oh, I'm going to classify
it would be bad
because he knows in his mind?
So he would. There's not just the fact that he knows in his mind. It's the fact that he sets the social standard for himself, right? So under any utilitarian framework, it should be bad for him to do this. Even not just my knowledge framework, but like any utilitarian should say it's bad because he sets the social standard.
Maximizing his pleasure and minimizing his. Let's take the standard classical model and let's pretend it just starts with Mill or something or some derivative of Mill. He's maximizing his pleasure. He's minimizing his pain. He's minimized any pain to anybody else. No one even knows he's doing it. He's therefore increasing his well-being. Why is it bad?